Then he assigned an officer to her case and said to him, "Give back everything that belongs to her, including the income from her land from the day she left the country until now." So, this woman has come back after the famine, and the moment she lands, she's receiving things that she did not work for. Why? Because she obeyed the man of God. She obeyed what the man of God said. So, decide in advance that what your man of God says is important. Decide in advance. Amua tu leo. By the way, Pastor Shadrach akisema kitu, hiyo kitu ni ya muhimu. Amua tu, as in, if you have decided Pastor Shadrach is your man of God, decide. If you have decided that Pastor Mwenda is your man of God, decide. Ile kitu amesema, hiyo kitu ni ya muhimu, hiyo kitu nafaa nifuatilie. Number 2, open up your spirit to believe what that man of God is saying. Open up your spirit to believe what that man of God is saying. Number 3, open up your spirit to will and to obey what God is saying. Because God will speak to you. God will speak to you. You will not sit in this congregation, or you will not sit under the anointing that is in this house and God fails to speak to you. God will speak to you. He will speak to you. So this week, nilikuwa tunachapa hizo maraundi jioni. I like walking. So I noticed a guy, na sikuwa nimemuona kwa hiyo route yangu. So I do different routes. Naweza tembea hivyo niende Bofa, ama niende hivyo Seahorse, ama niende hivi Red House. So I noticed a guy akichoma mahindi. Alafu nikafikiria, niko na 10 bob, acha nipitie hapo. Friendly guy, there were other guys who were there, they were banging me, so I had to wait for mine ndivyo ichomeke vizuri. So ongea tu na yeye kidogo hivi, namuuliza wewe ni mgeni? Ni mgeni, nimeanza juzi. Okay. Maka 500 hivyo kwa siku. Akaniambia napata 500. Now the guy started speaking. Akaniambia, unajua nilikuwa na boda, lakini kwa sababu ya loan ilichukuliwa. Na madhe ni mgonjwa na alipata stroke, na niko na watoi wawili. Kwa hivyo lazima siwezi kaa kwa nyumba, lazima nitoke. Unajua shida inaweza kuchapa utoke kwa nyumba. Now is the one talking. Unajua shida inaweza kuchapa utoke kwa nyumba. Lakini Mungu, unajua Mungu nilisikia tu ameniambia wewe kuja nitakuonyesha venye utafanya. He said that. Nilisikia Mungu ameniambia kuja nikuonyeshe venye utafanya. So do you think that guy heard from God? He heard from God. He heard from God. If he's averaging 500 in a day, that means at the end of the month, he has his 15K, and he's a new guy in that route. So, can you hear God? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Can you obey him? Yes, you can. That guy obeyed him. Yes, he was in a fix, but he was willing to obey what God was telling him at that particular time to obey. So, the blessing is an empowerment for you to prosper. The hand of God is on you. And when the hand of God is on you, it produces favor. And what favor does, favor provides that opportunity for you to prosper. So when those opportunities are presented, you have to be able to see them, you have to be able to get into them, to be able to get the results that you want, or the results that God has designed for you to get. So we can do mighty things if we know the power of God that is inside us. We can do mighty things if we know the power of God that is inside us. The pronouncement of the blessing over your life is not enough to live off if it is not accompanied by obedience in line with that pronouncement. The pronouncement of the blessing of your life is not enough if it is not accompanied by obedience in line with that pronouncement. So ukienda kule nyumbani, those ladies that were there, they are now old. That time they were not old when I was a child, when I was there, but now they are old. So ukienda upatane na yeye, kama umeenda church after church, umsalimie, umpatie 200, mwambie nunua sukari, anafurahi sana. Umpatie 500, oh, mtoto wangu anafurahi sana. And then now they say this. Okay, it's sweeter if it's said in Kikuyu, but let me just say it the way it is. He says, he says, anakuambia, barikiwa, may you farm in productive places. In Kikuyu he say, rore magokumia, as in, like wewe enda ulime mahali kwenye kuko productive. So they have already spoken the blessing. They have said, may God bless you. And may you farm in productive places. So there is something they are adding to just saying ubarikiwe. Anakwambia wewe endelea kwenye unalima, wewe endelea kulima in those productive places. So there is work that is attached to that blessing. There is your part. There is the God part. God has already done his part. There is your part that you need to work on. Now, let's look at the systems that are here on earth so that we can tell where we are and we can work towards coming up to the level where God wants us to be. So the first system that I want to look at is a system of reward. It's a system of reward. So we said we are looking at reward versus working versus sowing and reaping. So reward. This is the entry-level system where one takes what is given. That's the system of reward. It's an entry-level system where one just takes what they are given. So again, when I visit my parents, there are these young men, Nasina Shida now, by the way, but maybe most of them we probably schooled with them, or maybe they schooled with my brother, so some of them know me, and sometimes I don't know them. Lakini ukifika tu hivi, ukibranch off kwa main road, uingie tu hivi, umekutana, sema, umekuja, umetembea, umefanya vizuri sana. Sasa siniachie kitu ya macho. That's the reward system. It's a reward system. Now that's hiyo ni reward system ya pale chini, lakini ujue inafika mpaka huku juu. Ukisikia mtu yote anakuambia siniachie ya macho, wewe jua hiyo ana operate kwa reward, hata kama ni na anasema achiwe ya macho, wewe jua that's the reward system. That's a system that is there. It's low level. It's the entry level system. So this system works with children. So where you have a child, na unamwambia ukifanya hivi na mimi nitakufanya hivi, nitakufanyia hivi. Reward system. Ukifanya hivi nitakununulia hii. Is a reward system. In school, that's the same thing. Number 1, 2 and 3 ndio wataitwa pale mbele, ndio watapewa zawadi. Is a reward system. And it causes people to just work hard because at the end of the day, they are going to be rewarded. But this system is not sustainable. It's not a sustainable system. The children of Israel, when they were in the desert, that's the system they worked with. They were put on a diet. Yani walifika mahali, they were put on a diet of manna and quail. So that's what they were eating every day. I said it's a system where you take what you are given. So they didn't have an option. That's the only thing that they were receiving, manna and quail for many years. But when they got to the promised land, that manna stopped flowing. And the expectation was that they are going to get into the system of sowing and reaping. So when dealing with God, most of the time man wants to work with the system of reward. And I'll give you an example. So there is cry out to God. And I'm not saying these things I'm not saying they are bad. They are good. But you have to understand where the line is. Because the same Bible that has told you cry out to God is the same Bible that has now told you hiyo ushering nitatoka. But it's there. It's there. So there are people who are praying, hoping that something will change, that there will be provision. And you know, if something has already been done, you need to work on what has been done, as opposed to wanting to establish something new. I wish I had a good example for that. It's like kama mzazi ameaga na amekuachia nyumba na amekuachia shamba na haujapokea that inheritance that you have been given, and you are still here tunasema nani ati sasa unajua amefungiwa nyumba. Umefungiwa nyumba kiaje na uliachiwa nyumba? Why are you struggling with that particular one, as opposed to going to the one that has already been given to you and realigning your life from there? If you need to come back to this other side, you will come back when things take shape. So something has already been done, but someone is still trying to force something else. So that's how people end up with ultimatums, giving God ultimatums. If you don't do this, then I will do this. So this system of reward is a system where one eats what grows by itself. But God is quickly working to win us out of this system, to win you out of this system, to win me out of this system, where I'm just depending that something will happen. Something will happen, something will come through, something will happen. No. He wants us to get wind out of that system. So it will work for some time. It will work for some time, but it's not sustainable. Isaiah chapter 50, chapter 7, verse 30. Isaiah chapter 7, verse 30. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, this is the proof that what I say is true. This year you will eat what grows by itself. Next year you will eat what springs up from that. But in the third year you will plant crops and harvest them. You will tend vines and eat their fruit. So we need to get there. We can eat what grows by itself 1 year, what grows by itself another year, but when you're getting to the third year, then you will plant and you will harvest, you will tend vines and you will eat their fruits. So we look at another system. This is a system of working. And when I say working here, I mean job. Daddy ameenda wapi? Ameenda job. I mean that job now. And this is a system where man is working to meet their own needs. And let's look at that from the book of, from where we'll see some few versions here, or different stories, from Genesis chapter 24. Genesis chapter 24. Genesis chapter 24, verse 50. Genesis 24, verse 50. It says, Laban and Bethuel answered, this is from the Lord. We can say nothing to you. One way or another, here is Rebekah. Take her and go and let her become the wife to your master's son, as the Lord has directed. Then when Abraham's servant heard that, he said he bowed down to the ground before the Lord. Then the servant brought out gold, silver, jewelry, and articles of clothing and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave costly gifts to the brother and to her mother. Then he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night there. When they got up the next morning, he said, send me on my way to my master. But the brother and the mother replied, let the girl remain here for 10 days, so that then you may go. But he said to them, do not detain me now that the Lord has granted me success on the journey. Send me on my way so that I may go to my master. Then they said, let us call the girl and ask her about it. So they called Rebekah and asked her, will you go with this man? I will go. So they sent their sister Rebekah on their way, along with her nurse and Abraham's servant and the men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, our sister, may you increase to 1,000 upon thousands, and may your offspring possess the gates of the enemies. So that's Isaac. That's how Isaac got his husband. Please note, that's how Isaac got his husband. So, yeah, got his wife. Correct. Thank you. So Abraham sent a servant to go get a wife for the son. And we were discussing that somewhere. Na hiyo system inakaa si system mbaya. Tunaweza saidia watu wengi hapa. So Genesis 29, let's see now another system. So you realize that guy, Isaac, he did not struggle. He did not struggle getting a wife. Alipangiwa hivi na mambo yake ikakuwa iko sawa. So 29, let's see mtu akijipangia kupata wife. So Genesis chapter 29, let's see. Genesis chapter 29, verse 15. So he says, Laban said to him, now this is Jacob now. Jacob getting the wife. Laban said to him, just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages will be. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel was lovely in form and beauty. Jacob was in love with Rachel, and he said, I will work for 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel. And Laban said, it is better I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me. And Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel. Sasa, if you continue with that story, utaona Jacob by the way alichezwa. But this guy was willing to work 7 years. Sasa kama huyu jamaa angekuwa amesoma story yao ama history yao venye babake alipata wife, angeenda tu kwa babake amwambie, by the way I've seen a beautiful girl somewhere. And this beautiful girl is wa lineage yetu. Wewe tuma wazee wa muende. But because this guy was in love, akaambiwa ati work. He's working. As in now, if you think about it really, he's being given work, and he's saying, he's the one who said, I will work for 7 years. 7 years. 7 years. Haya, acha tuseme alikuwa amempenda sana. But now, the system of work, because now this guy was told, you will not work for me for nothing. State your wages. And he said his wages, what he wants is a wife. So yeye mwenyewe, kwa mdomo wake, alijitega yeye mwenyewe. So sometimes, when we get into that environment of work, we are not truly able to give value to what we are bringing on the table. We are not able to truly give value to what we are bringing on the table. We undervalue ourselves. And the reason why we will undervalue ourselves is because we are looking at our current needs. What do I need sorted right now? Ni pesa ngapi zitanitosha? And I've seen this when we are hiring people at our office. Mnakutana na mtu, mnaongea naye, umeadvertise opening, anakuja, mnaketi mnaongea naye. Obviously number 1 unajua maisha impeleki vizuri, maisha inamkimbiza. So you ask the person, what do you expect as your pay? And I'll be honest with you, most of the guys who are leaving campus right now, ukauliza what do you expect for your pay? Sijui ni hesabu gani watu wanakuanga wamefanya, lakini watu wanakuanga wameamini kama naweza lipwa dhao moja kila siku itakuwa sawa. So what do they say? If you can start me off at 30, I'll be okay. Sasa mtu akiingia na hiyo 30, okay, obviously we don't start them off at 30, we start them off at something much higher. And the system where we work based on commission. So if one is able to work harder, they're able to get more. But what we realize after a period of time is that now this person earns much more than what they had requested, and still it's not enough. So like last year, I was sitting with one of my employees and I was just talking to them and finding out from them, so how are you doing? And then I reminded her, when you came in, this is what you said you want. And now she was basing it on the needs that she had at that particular time. And she was basing it also on where she had worked previously. So I told her, I asked her, what did you earn last month? And she had earned 8 times what she had requested for previously when she came into the company. So now, even with the 8 times earning that she had earned, she was still feeling that it's not enough. She has not grown. So there is a problem with that particular system. Let's read Genesis chapter 31, verse 38. Genesis 31, verse 38 and 42. And now this is Jacob talking about Laban and their relationship with Laban for the period when they have been together. He says, Jacob says, I have been with you for 20 years now. Your sheep and goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten rams from your flock. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself. And you demanded payment from me for whatever was stolen by day or night. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime and the cold at night, and sheep fled from my eyes. It was like this for 20 years. I was in your household. I worked for 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Verse 42, if the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, I would surely have been sent away empty-handed. But God has seen my hardship and the toil of my hands, and last night he has rebuked you. Now, what is 20 years? What is 20 years? Yani wewe umekaa umefanyia mtu kazi 20 years, and he's feeling, were it not for the God, this God of his father, of his grandfather Abraham, and the God of Isaac, he would have left this place empty-handed. And you know that happens. That happens. People work and retire and go home empty-handed. Ukisikia watu wameretire na mtu amefika nyumbani ameanza kupata depression nini, ni kwa sababu sasa this person has been a system of work. Anafika nyumbani anashindwa sasa nifanye nini? Ndio hiyo stress imefika. Ndio wale watu wameanza kusema hizo pesa za nini za pensions zitachelewa. Zinatokanga after how long? Zinatokanga after 2 years. Hey, after 2 years. Now for 20 years, okay, now maybe poor work even longer, maybe poor work even 30 years plus, or maybe 40 years. You have been receiving a pay slip every month. Now you have been told you need to wait for 2 years to start receiving something. It's a long time. People give up. So what is 20 years? We've been making this joke for fellowship here too, because we have some young men, and you know sometimes young men think that they will always be young, and there's nothing wrong. Lakini, wewe jua, I'm giving you the quantification of what is 20 years. Kama uliona Kibaki akiingia power, unakumbuka Rais Kibaki? Kama uliona Rais Kibaki akiingia into power, wewe jua miaka 20 zilishapita kitambo. So kama saa hiyo ulikuwa 20 years, saa hiyo jua uko 40 something. Sawa? Kama uliona Uhuru akiingia, jua miaka 10 zilishapita. So in case that time you are 20 years, right now you are 30 years. Na kama ulikuwa 30 years, saa hiyo uko 40 years. That's how years go. That's how years goes. So this guy was working like that, just working like that, with nothing to show for it. And this is when we need to watch out at the body of Christ. that we don't get caught up in this system of trying to meet our own needs, a system that promises you siku moja utaomoka, and you really never get there. You really never get there. We need to get to the higher system. We need to get to the higher system as fast as we can. So when I finished Form 4, saa hiyo siku hizi watu wanamaliza Form 4 mnakaa ati results zinatoka January na September, August mmeshaanza kuingia shule. Sasa some of us, like, that was not a privilege. So unamaliza Form 4 kwanza unakaa nyumbani miaka miwili. So to keep me busy, my dad gave me work, and part of the work that he gave me ilikuwa ya kupanda miti. So that was over 20 years ago. So leo nimewapatia story mingi sana za babangu. So the last time nilienda home, akaniambia niliuza miti. And by the way, aliuza miti kwa sababu after that aliniambia madhe na umpatie huyu 10,000. Umpatie huyu 10,000. Umpatie huyu 10,000. Aende anunue mulango. Yeah. Now, why he's doing that? Why is he doing that? He's doing that because he knows I planted those trees. But now he's those trees. Those trees were his. I was just a son. I was working there. But no, 20 years. Unajua kuna wakati hapa Shadrack alisimama akasema nampande Mikilifi, kama uko na hiyo upande Mikilifi. Panda Mikilifi. 20 years from now utaitana nini mbao, and you think 20 years is far. It's not far. It's very near. Now, so that's now. So how was my dad operating that time? Maybe he knew something that I didn't know. But 20 years from now, he planted. So even now, he's cut trees. He's planted others. He's still planted others. Because right now, he's in his 70s. Yeah, na mimi 90s atachapa. Na akitapa hiyo 90s, sitastuka kusikia amesema, nilikata miti. Niliuza miti. Haya. So, let's get into this system now. The system of sowing and reaping. So please note that Laban had increased because Jacob was working for him. And the difference is because Jacob had the blessing on him. So there are people here who are working for other people, and there are people who are working on other, and those organizations, by the way, they are doing well and they are thriving. Na mimi sema mtu achoke kazini, hapana, usitoke. But when Jacob told Laban that he wants to leave, this is what happened. Verse 27. Verse 27, it says, but Laban said to him, if I have found favor in your eyes, this is Genesis chapter 30. If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. For I have learned by divination. So divination is a wrong way of learning things. But he probably was not a true believer. But I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. And then verse 28, he added, name your wages. So hii ni mtego. Mara mingi ukiambia mdosi na unajua wewe ile kazi ulikuwa umeshikilia ilikuwa poa, umwambie na nataka kutoka, na sasa hiyo ndio anakuita anakuambia, unajua tunaweza ongea, unataka kulipwa pesa ngapi? Huko unaenda wanakulipa pesa ngapi? Wewe unataka kulipwa pesa ngapi? So that is what he was being told here. He was being told, name your wages and I will pay them. It's a trick. That's a trick. So if Jacob had not gone to Laban and had started working around the blessing that had been pronounced on him by his father Isaac, he would still have increased greatly. He would not have wasted those years that he wasted working for his uncle. So Genesis chapter 26, verse 12 and 14, Isaac planted in the land and in the same year reaped 100-fold because the Lord had blessed him. The man became rich and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. And he had many flocks and herds and servants, and the Philistines envied him. Now, this person planted when there was a famine, And he continued to increase even when there was a famine. And obviously people will start speaking. I told Mama Sami this story so I can repeat it because I've already told her. The very first time she took me to a place called Madunguni, we had actually gone to redig a well. Like redigging a well. I don't know, Pastor, whether you heard this story. So when we went there, Pastor and Mama Sami, they started doing other things, and me, I was left with the guys that were redigging the well. So watu wamechimba kisima hapo, wanachapa story. So unajua story ikishika sana, you see this, when somebody amechapa story na imeshika sana, they are in their mother tongue, but they have instances when now they move either to English ama to Swahili. So hao wamechapa story yao na sasa wameanza kuingia kwa line yenye naweza sikia ile kitu wanasema. So huyo jamaa mwenye alikuwa anachimba kisima akasema, acha nikuambie, huyo unajua sasa huyo bwanake huyo ni bishop. Huyo sijui mambo yake sana, lakini huyu mama ako na pesa. Acha nikuambie, huyu mama ako na pesa. Bwanake sijui vizuri sana, lakini huyu mama ako na pesa. Now, I don't know what they had seen in Mama Sami, but if you ask me, I know huyu benye walisema hivyo ni ukweli. So now, Isaac had increased to the point where people are now talking like that. They were envying him. They can just tell something is happening in his life. So, the power of the blessing, this is the power of the blessing. The 100-fold harvest for Isaac was there, but unless he planted the crop, the harvest would not have been experienced. So your 100-fold is there, but unless you plant the crop, you will not be able to experience that 100-fold. The system of sowing and reaping is a system that one keeps on growing progressively. And this is a system that is not dependent on wages or where wages are changing from time to time. This is a system where one can be a blessing to other people. It's a system where one can be a blessing to other people. In this system, Laban is not boss. God is your boss. So, your 100-fold is there. And the way for you to activate it is to plant your seed for you to be able to experience the harvest. Now, I hope to be able to move a bit fast now. So please stay with me. So there are some important things to note when it comes to operations in the system of sowing and reaping. Number one, I mentioned this last week. We are looking at the system of sowing and reaping. Number one, God will give you seed. God will give you seed. God will give you seed. Now, when I asked yesterday, I asked my wife, so what should I do? She said, like now when you say seed, you need to explain what seed is. So let me explain what is seed. Seed is an idea. God will give you an idea. Seed is an idea. God will give you seed. Seed is some money that you will receive. Yani pesa umeipangia sana ati penye utaipata hapana, lakini somehow, some way, you have received some money. That is seed. That is seed. That is not harvest. Nimekuja nimekupatia 10,000, hiyo kweli ni harvest. What had you planted? You have not planted something. That is seed. That is seed that you have received. Is an idea you have received. You know, I was speaking with someone, and I can see them here. We were speaking on Friday, and they were telling me of a certain shop, iko pale ile line ya Junior, ya Kamau. Kuna mtu alifungua hapo duka na nikaangalia, ninaona anauza safe, sijui anauza vitu zinakaaje. Na nikashindwa, huyu mtu amefungua hii duka kweli? Kilifi watu wanahitaji hizi vitu. So someone was telling me that person is selling. Na mimi nikipita hapo wanaangalia duka hivi nashindwa, na hizi vitu wanauzia nani? That person is selling. So what happened? That person had a seed that I can actually bring things like a safe, I can bring you the cabinets zinakaa hivi, I can bring mirrors, the mirrors za sako, na ziwekwe hapo na zitauzwa. That's a seed. So God can give you a seed. By the way, if you do this, this and this will happen. So that's a seed. So now God will give you seed. And it's important for you to be able to differentiate what is seed and what is harvest. Because if you eat the seed, you will not have something to plant, and eventually you will not have something to harvest. If you eat seed, you will know. Seed doesn't taste like the fruit. It is bitter. So ile siku utaingia Naivas na uko na 30 bob yako, wewe chukua hapo pimiwa, enda nyumbani ioshe, kata. Toa hiyo seed iko ndani, uma. Usikie venye ina taste. Does it taste like the apple? It doesn't. It's bitter. Why? Because that thing is supposed to go back to the ground. That's how a seed is. So we receive some money and that money was meant to be seed. Halafu wewe uende uitumie vibaya, hiyo pesa itakuuma. Utaanza kufikiria, by the way ile 10k nilifanyia hiyo, itakuuma. Harvest is marked by abundance. That's when you know you are harvesting. If there is abundance, then you know you are harvesting. So there are two things that are always at war: seed and need. Those two things are always at war: seed and need. And I have seen instances where people receive some good amount of money, but the need is crying out too much, and that money goes to the need. Well, that money was supposed to go to to be seed. That money was supposed to be planted. So watch out. When you receive seed and there is need, you need to be firm on those things. And we've been told those things, by the way. Pastor Shadrach has given us that illustration here. Mama Sami anaweza kuwa na pesa nyumbani, lakini hiyo pesa imeshatengwa fulani. Kwa hiyo hata ukija hapa useme na nahitaji la 10,000, hiyo pesa imeshatengwa. Unajua last week nilisema hiyo jina hapa nikipreach karibu kwanza nicheke, lakini hiyo pesa imeshatengwa. Hiyo pesa haiko, imeshatengwa. So God will give you seed for the environment you are in. God will give you an idea for the environment you are in. And I've seen this. I've seen this with people even here in this church. And there's one sister, she's not here, she's called Kanana. She's a Sunday school teacher. And my first experience with Kanana, I met her at Mkoroshoni. I didn't know she was somebody worshiping here. But she was a student at Pwani University. But every Saturday, Kanana would go to Mkoroshoni to sell clothes. God had given her a seed for the environment she was in. God had given her seed for the environment she was in. The last time we planted watermelons, Kanana came and bought watermelons. Unajua student anakuja ananunua melons sijui kilo ngapi anakuachia 2,000. Kwa kweli ni student.